back to the Hot Tag Hooligans Wrestling Podcast show with myself, Aaron, and Tom. 2024 is here. And before we start, Tom, got to say shout out to my University of Michigan Wolverines for winning the college football championship last night. 2024 starting off great for me, but we got to remember 2023. And tonight we're going to bring down our top women of the year. And help us do that, she does everything in wrestling but wrestle. It's Kimmy Sokol. How's it going, Kimmy?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me back. That is my Twitter bio. I just felt like it just fit me perfectly, and everyone seems to like it. You clearly seem to like it, so I'm doing something right.
I do like it. That's a pretty good hashtag, T-shirt, merchandise sales. We could really push that. You should really look into that.
That's my goal for 2024. Like we talk about New Year's resolutions. That's my New Year's resolution to get merch out this year. So hoping and praying.
And for anyone who doesn't know, Kimmy has been on fire over the last year. Fire! You are everywhere.
Thank you. Well, I graduated college and I don't have anything to do, so you might as well just do everything that's presented to you. Like even me working with Cody Rhodes in December, that was such a last minute thing and I canceled on my best friend. I felt so bad. And I was like, I'm sorry, like this is a current WWE superstar. I gotta take this. And she's like, that's okay, like I get it. I was like, thank God. So I saw Cody Rhodes. Good dude.
Me and Tom would have canceled on our wives for Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, for sure.
So no shame in canceling on the friend.
Thank you. At least you support me.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When I looked at my 2023 top women of the year, this was very difficult for me to kind of put together this year, unlike last year. Last year, I made my list. I felt really comfortable with it. This year, I made my list. I'm comfortable with it. But so many women were so neck and neck and had almost the same year. What do you take away from the 2023 year in women's wrestling?
I think that there's more of a focus now. I mean, talk about AEW. There's this huge 8-woman tag tomorrow. The whole Billy Starks, Athena storyline, and don't worry, we're gonna talk about it. Like, I feel like Tony Khan now is just so focused on evolving the women's wrestling scene for AEW. Deanna debuted last week. Mercedes Moné might appear tomorrow for all we know. So yeah, I think it was a really good year for AEW, WWE, the indie scene. So I'm excited to see what 2024 brings. Mickey James is having an all-woman show in Australia. High hopes this year.
Awesome. Now, before we get to our top fives, I want to go through our 6 through 10s just really quick, and I will start off with my 10 through 6. Number 10 for me was the NWA Women's Champion Kenzie Page, finally defeating Camille. I thought she had an outstanding year. Number 9 was Trinity. Really carried Impact Wrestling on the women's side, in my opinion. Had some really good matchups. Number 8, to me, is the best women's actual wrestler in the world, and that's Julia. Um, can't wait to hopefully she'll get over here to the States so more people can see her this year. Number 7, Io Sky. And number 6 for me was the Ring of Honor Women's Champion, Athena.
Why
Tom,
is she
your
that
10.
low on your list?
Okay. So Athena for me. All right, hold on. I take it that means that she's in your top 5. So after you talk about her where you're at, I'll chime in on that. Okay.
Okay.
Tom, you're 10 through 6.
So my 10 through 6 is similar to yours, but in a different order. So my number 10 would be Julia. My number 9 would be, I wish I had my paper with me. I left it in the other room. It would be Kenzie Page. And then I had, unfortunately, Kimmy, I had Athena right after that. And then my number 7 was Camille. And then my number 6, though, was actually Chris Statlander.
Oh wow.
See, this is the good part. Just watching Kimmy's reactions as we're naming these off is great. This is why I love doing these shows. Kimmy, you're 10 through 6.
I don't. My list is so different. I feel like I'm low key kind of wrong, but that's why we do these podcasts, right?
Absolutely.
So my number 10 was Sheeta because only three-time AEW Women's Champ. Give her some shine. Next, my number 9 was the newest WWE signee, Jade Cargill, because, undefeated until Chris Statlander. My number 8 was Mickey James for having a hell of a year as Knockouts champ. Then my number 7 was Trinity, and the hope and pray we see her at the Royal Rumble. And my number 6 is Tiffany Stratton after her amazing match with Becky Lynch at No Mercy.
That's awesome. This is going to be fun. All right, Kimmy, let's go. Number 5. Who you
So
got?
I believe last year she was our number 1 collectively. And, she took some personal time this summer. She carried the Raw Women's division on her back. She became the longest reigning women's champion of all time. Bianca Belair is my number 5.
Okay. So last year, Tom and I both had Mandy Rose last year as our number 1. But this is where your face is really going to drop. Bianca Belair is not in my top 10. She's not in my top 10 at all. And it kills me because I love Bianca Belair and she puts on really good matches. But she did nothing for me personally this year. And I do want to remind people, we kind of mentioned this. Everyone's got their different opinions on why people are some places. Sometimes it doesn't matter if they're a champion or they're not. Uh, that time away, they kept starting and stopping with her this year. I really felt like it was a start and stop. The battle with damage control got really boring. I felt like we were going through that last year with her and Bailey, and then they just kind of rehashed it again. Poor and lazy writing for Bianca Belair is the reason why she was not in my top 10.
Understandable.
All right, Tom, you're number 5.
So before I start my number 5, I am going to say that I did have a really hard time with this list. And I feel like overall, people had really great stints. But if you look at the whole year, most of them all had a lot of downtime too, where they didn't have a lot going on for me. And I also want to preface my list with I don't necessarily look at the statistics on matches won and titles held. I go off of how they made me feel. Do they make me want to watch and want to be invested in what they're doing week to week? Um, do I get a reaction from them? Do I care what's going on? So I want to preface it with that first. So my number 5 is Chelsea Green. And the reason I say that is because I love everything that she does on TV. Just her character is funny. It's one of those where even if it's a brief segment backstage, I have to watch it. And I can't say that for everybody. There's a lot of backstage stuff that I go, I'm watching this because I need to know what's going on, but I'm not necessarily wanting to watch it. When I see Chelsea's on the screen, I know it's going to be gold. Now, she did have, her and Piper had the title run, which was great. She did do some things and accomplish some things this year. But for me, the most important thing that she did was make me care that she was on my TV.
Now, Chelsea Green did not make my top 10, but I'll be honest with you, I was very pleased the way WWE actually booked her. I was kind of really worried when she came back. They actually gave her a character, and the character does draw heat, does draw comedic relief when you need it. So I can see where you would put her on your list.
I love that pick. I think that Chelsea Green's gonna have a very big 2024. I think that she is a potential person to win that Money in the Bank ladder match later this year. So I like that. It's very rare that we see like women's tag team wrestlers make the top 10, so makes me happy Chelsea got her shine.
Number 5 for me is someone that I didn't really understand what they were doing with them just a few months ago because I didn't think anything was wrong with them. But then once the character came out, man, does she live in this gimmick? And that's timeless Toni Storm. Um, she had two AEW championship runs this year. One was shorter than the other, but she's doing her best character work in a character that I thought was just totally doomed to fail. And and this is one thing about all the women. A lot of these women didn't have a lot of matches this year. And when they did, they may just be at a house show if it's WWE, or it's on like Collision or Rampage, and they were meaningless. But I do believe she is one of the shining lights right now in AEW. The Wendy Richter comment was absolute gold. And she's doing her best work in a character that was probably doomed to fail as well. But Timeless Toni Storm for me is my number 5.
So she's my number 2 because I feel like she's one of the hardest working people in the AEW women's locker room. She is the fifth longest champion, whatever the story is going to be with her and Mariah. I think that she's really stepped up. So, and this title reign actually counts. It's not like when Thunder relinquished it and she was like the temporary champion. This championship actually counts.
All right, you're number 4, Kimmy.
So this is someone that was on your guys's like 6 through 10. Someone who I believe at some point, I don't know when, is gonna get signed to WWE. She is probably one of the biggest international women's wrestlers this year, Julia.
Yep, cannot complain one bit about her. I just, last year she was in my top 5. And this year for me, I didn't get to watch her as much as I wanted to. And I really feel like, I don't know. It's just one of those things with her. There's a little bit of disconnect this past year for me with her. Her matches were always strong. Megan Bain, fantastic matchup with her. But I think her mindset is somewhere else. And I think her quality of work kind of went down a little bit. I'm very excited. Hopefully she does get to the States. Hopefully she's used the way that she's needs to be, because to me she's the best women's wrestler on the planet. So, and Tom also had Julia in hers too. So, all right, Tom, you're number 4.
So my number 4, we think I'm going to get some heat probably for my list. I will say that. So maybe some hot takes. But my number 4 is Trinity. And I look at what she's done for Impact. I feel like they're going in such a great direction. And now that they're going to TNA and the hype that is kind of around that, I think she's one of the biggest draws that they have. And I think her championship reign has been great. And, I just look at the longevity throughout the year of what she's accomplished. And also putting that stamp on to that brand, that company, which is something that they needed. To have someone of the caliber as her to come over there and do great things and help elevate their whole promotion is why she made my list at number 4.
The only reason she didn't make my top 5 was because she didn't have that many matches. Like she was signed, I think, in June, and Impact only runs like once a month pay-per-view wise, and she wasn't wrestling on the TV tapings. So that's why, like in my opinion, she was lower. But maybe she'll be at the Royal Rumble in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that was the reason why, her importance to Impact, and for them to be able to sign someone like her and to perhaps make great matchups with on the women's side even more legit, was why she made my top 10. But I'm kind of like you, Kimmy. Her what do you say? Her ability to not be there is what really dropped her for me in my top 10. But I had to give her the kudos in the top 10 as far as the importance that she had. All right, number 4. I may get some heat for this one, but I don't care. This person held 5 titles this past year and wrestled 122 times all over the world at 19 years of age. And yes, you can call me a homer all you want to, but it's Space Jesus, Billy Starks herself, to see what she is accomplishing right now in the sport is remarkable. Um, and she wrestles everyone from Ronda Rousey to Athena. She goes over to Japan. Every match she's in, she puts it all out there. And her character development this year, and the storyline with Athena for me really drew me in. Anytime Billy Starks is on my TV, I'm tuning in anyway for personal reasons. But it doesn't mean that they had to make her worthwhile. They could be in the throwing her in AE Dark matches, Rampage matches, and she's losing nonstop. But they really started to develop her character. Big things on the horizon. Would not shock me if she's the next Ring of Honor television women's champion when this is all said and done. Oh, I gotta get your pick then. But I thought she should have beat Athena, but it's okay. She's my number 4.
I agree with you. She should have beat Athena at Final Battle, but how could you not pick Layla Hirsch to win the Ring of Honor TV Women's Championship? The finals is going to be her and Rachel Ellering. We'll finally finish that story. Come on.
Billy.
You know, Billy did not make my top 10, but you've brought up some very good points, that things that I didn't even think of to take into consideration. And I will say that, even in my top 5, I think people are so neck and neck that it's a tough list this year for me. There's probably 15 women that deserve to be in the top 10. So that's a great pick, and it's just not one that made mine.
122 matches. I think she was actually second in the United States for women behind Masha for someone who was in high school and graduated as valedictorian. Come on now. That's number 4 for
I
me.
I mean, she didn't make my top 10 either, but I think if you had to like name somebody who's gonna have a very good 2024, I think it is Billy. I think she does eventually at Supercard of Honor or whatever the next Ring of Honor pay-per-view is, because we never know anymore at Tony Khan. I think that's where she'll beat Athena, because if you think about this too, right? If Billy Starks loses that tournament, that's how Athena turns on her again. And that's how you restart the feud.
Could be. You may be right. You may be right. Maybe right. All right, Kimmy, you're number 3.
I think I'm the only person in the world that didn't have this person as my number one. It's because she did not wrestle a lot. And even though she's carrying Judgment Day on her back, that does not give her an excuse to not wrestle. Because at the end of the day, this is a women's wrestling top 10. This is not a character list, a promo list. It's a wrestling list, which is why Rhea Ripley, for the lack of wrestling, is my number 3.
I tell you now, you're not the only person who did not have her at number 1, because she's also my number 3. And that was one that I had tremendous, tremendous hard time coming to grips with. Because let's be honest, she's one of the most over women in the WWE. Not even women, most over talents in all of WWE. She was definitely primed to have an amazing year. But for some reason, whether she was hurt or whatever, she only wrestled, I looked it up, I think 20 times this year outside of a house show. And most of those matches went 5 minutes or less. And it wasn't because, in my opinion, that they were trying to make her dominant. It was because they didn't care. They're more worried about her being mommy. Now, over the last couple of weeks, they're starting to build her back up. But she should have definitely been number 1 if they would have done her right this year. And I think the WWE failed her. So for me, she was also my number 3.
That's why I was shocked like the PWI had her as 1, because if you look at like their criteria, it's literally matches. The girl didn't wrestle. Billy Starks wrestled like quadruple the amount of times that she did. What is
100,
this?
122. It's the last of Billy's count at the end of the year, I think. So, yeah.
So you're not going to believe this, but she was also my number 3, and for
Yes.
basically the same reason. And I would say that if she hadn't been the glue that held Judgment Day together and didn't have entertaining segments with Dominic and all the jazz that goes into her character, she wouldn't have even been in the top 5. I think for me, that's what saves her. The fact that she held the title didn't mean a whole lot for me. If you're not defending it all the time, I mean, you all know my opinion on Roman. So same thing with her. If you're not defending it all the time, that doesn't really hold a lot of weight with me. But she had been very entertaining throughout the year. She was a big focal point for the whole show. So she did make my top 5 at the number 3 spot, but that's as high as I can give her.
Wow,
On
all
my,
3 of us.
that makes me so happy because on my podcast, the BCP, everyone was fighting that Rhea should have been like our Women's Wrestler of the Year, and I go no. And I literally listed paragraphs upon paragraphs of stats as to why she should not be number 1. And I guess Rob just got so annoyed with me that he listened to me. So I'm glad I found people that agree. Makes me feel less crazy.
I said it doesn't mean that you're just because you're a champion means nothing to me. It's got to be what you do with it when you got it. So, all right, you Kimmy said that your number 2 was Timeless Toni Storm, correct? All right,
Correct.
and Tom, your number 2.
So my number 2 is Timeless Toni Storm. So I look at that as, to me, and we talked about this a little bit in the men's. For me, the year in 2023 for AEW wasn't very strong, in my opinion. And I look at what I actually cared about that was going on. And for the women, it was her. She was the main draw for me to make me want to watch what was going on each week. And just her title reign plus her character work is just the only thing that makes me feel anything in the women's division as of right now. So that's where, she ranks high in this list for me, is because, when you talk about the number 2 company in the world, and she's basically one of the main things that's making me watch that program, she's got to be high up on that list.
And she's someone too that wrestled like out of I think any single woman champion that AEW's had, she's wrestled the most out of anybody. So I'm happy she's finally getting her shine. She's another one. She didn't even make PWI's top 10.
It's wild.
I know.
All right, so for my number 2, when you look at who could be the next big star in the WWE, there's a name that continuously is always brought up over the last 5-6 months, and that's Jade Cargill. But for me, it's my number 2, and it's Tiffany Stratton. And I'm just gonna tell you, a year ago, I didn't see a lot in her outside of she's got a great look. This year, she turned that switch, and her matches were fantastic. And maybe it was someone like a Becky Lynch who helped get it out of her, but sometimes that's what you need. She was an outstanding NXT Women's Champion. She's someone who, going into last year, I probably wouldn't have thought would ever be in my top 10. And sometimes I like those surprise people, like a Tiffany Stratton, to prove me wrong. And to me, I would say about Royal Rumble, I'd throw her in there or right after WrestleMania, and let's start this new era of Tiffany Stratton, especially when Charlotte's out. You'll have Jade probably coming in perhaps as well. And even if Jade's not there, I think Tiffany Stratton's that next big star in WWE. She can wrestle. She's got a great look, great presence, great character development, and she's my number 2.
She was someone that I didn't like when she won the title. I was like, this is so stupid. I hate this decision. Shawn Michaels, what are you thinking? And then she had that feud with Becky Lynch, and I was like, oh my God, never mind. Shawn, you're a smart dude. I should never doubted you. She's another one that's gonna have a big 2024. I could actually see her being like a dark horse in the Money in the Bank. If they want to really like elevate her, I see her being in that match.
Yeah, like I said, there's like 15 women that could have been in my top 10. I think she's very interchangeable with anyone 6 through 10 for me. I just wouldn't have her in my top 5, but she did have a great stint, and I think that's the problem with a lot of it. They had a great feud with somebody, or they had 3 or 4 months that were fantastic, and then maybe they didn't do as much after that or before that. But for me, she didn't make my top 10, but that's a very good pick.
All right, before we get to everyone's number one, Kimmy, I want you to give me one female talent that you were disappointed in their year, and then one female talent that you think 2024 is going to be their breakout.
So for Breakout, this person just signed with WWE. She appeared in a video earlier today by NXT Anonymous. She is someone that I interviewed early this year, and I remember telling the editor for the website right before I go, Bill, by the end of the year, she's gonna get signed. We have to do this interview. And that is Maddie Rinkowski. I am so excited for her. She just fits that NXT mold. I don't know exactly when they're gonna put her on TV, like besides an NXT Anonymous video, but she's someone who I'm really looking forward to just getting in there with the NXT talent. Maybe when they do the NXT Breakout Women's, like that's someone who is gonna win. So I would definitely say Maddie. And for someone who I was disappointed with, she had a very big moment in Wembley. She won the title, but she really didn't defend it. And that is Soraya. I was very disappointed with that title reign. I was disappointed with even now what they're doing with like her, Harley, and Ruby. I hate the storyline. So she's someone who I was very disappointed with, Soraya.
Real quick on Maddie. Absolutely love Maddie. If people don't know, she's involved in my book, Ascending the Queendom. Now available at Barnes & Noble's, cheap plug by me. So absolutely love her. I sure hope they allow her to be the Maddie Rinkowski character that we all love. I'm afraid they're going to name her Sarah Spielman or something, and she's not going to have any personality. That's always my biggest fear, because I think, her little videos that she was doing really helped WWE kind of look at her and think, wow. And I would go right with that. That's the character right there. That's exactly who she needs to be. Her in-ring work is fantastic. That's a great pick. For me, the person who kind of let me down this year, and don't really know what happened with them overall, is a former guest of ours, and that's Roxanne Perez. Um, I really thought, she was really going to step it up and be given a shot. I do understand. I think maybe she did get hurt earlier in the year, and maybe that took some wind out of her sails a little bit. And then that's when someone like a Tiffany Stratton stepped up and a Lyra Valkyrie stepped up really well. But hopefully she will rebound, because there's a lot of talent there with Roxanne, and hopefully she can turn that around. As far as breakout stars, for me, this is kind of tough, because I feel like this person was kind of hot, and then they totally threw water on top of them and totally cooled them off. But I still think that they're going to be a big player, and I think this year is going to be it. And that's Cora Jade. I hopefully they'll get her restarted. It looks like she's got a match with Gigi Dolan going on as we're kind of recording this tonight. And I think this next year for her could be a really big breakout year in NXT for her. And then Kalani Jordan. I'll just throw her out there too. Kalani Jordan. Tom?
I think that Roxy needs to get on the main roster. I don't know what we're waiting for.
I don't know what they're waiting for a lot. Lyra Valkyrie was, I thought she was kind of main roster ready too. I'm glad that she is in NXT and she's getting a chance to shine a little bit, but I don't know.
So for me, this is going to be maybe a little controversial, but I think the same person is the person that I was disappointed in, but I also think may have a breakout year in 2024, and that is Roxanne Perez. I think that there's so much potential there that they are not going to let her go to waste. Things were slowed down for her for sure. But I think that in this next year, the upcoming, let's say after Mania year, part of the year, I think is going to be a focus for her. I just don't see any way, shape, or form that they're not going to push her and put her into something that is going to be spectacular. She's just got too much talent to be wasted. But definitely agree with you, Aaron, that she was a very big disappointment. Not her herself, but what they have done with her and how she fell off after being, the women's champion.
Yes, Roxanne, if you're watching this, please do not think we we think all of a sudden you fell off the face of the earth. We just had such high expectations for you over the next year. I really thought she'd already be on the main roster, like Kimmy said. At this point, actually, and I thought Cora Jade would have been too. Those were both two people that I thought that they would have thrown on the main roster. Especially after, I hate to say it, after they did some cuts. You know, sometimes when they do cuts, it's time to throw some fresh faces. Instead, they went the other route. They brought back in Kari Zane. There were some people like that they kind of threw in there. So, all right, Kimmy, here we go. I'm pretty sure I know who your number one is by process of elimination. Go ahead.
She is your forever reigning Ring of Honor champion, the only person that wrestled every week consistently on TV. She literally is carrying Ring of Honor on her back. As someone who covers Ring of Honor weekly, it makes me so happy to see such a focus on women's wrestling. My very good friend Athena is my number one. How could you not?
All right. So you asked me earlier, how is she my number 6? Because of outside of the storyline with Billy, I don't think that they put her in any feuds to me that mattered. And for someone who wrestles on TV every week, I don't like the proving ground matches for Ring of Honor. I don't like that. I like for people, here's a number one contenders match, go wrestle it. Now let's go feud for 2 to 3 months. I like that philosophy more than the champion's going to wrestle the challenger, and if challenger wins, then they can get a title shot. So a lot of her matches to me fell flat, even though they were good matches. But for a storyline purpose, they fell flat, and that's why she was at my number 6 instead of up towards the top.
To be
I
fair,
can't argue with really anybody that's in the top 10 being in any slot, because like I keep saying, I really feel like everyone was neck and neck. There wasn't, to me, anyone that had this just outstanding year that clearly puts them in number one. I can see where differences of opinion, um, you know, based on what your criteria for professional wrestling or sports entertainment is. What flavor do you really like the most? I can see all of these opinions, and they're all great picks. There's so many great women that, if given the right tools and the right storylines and the right push, there's so many great accomplishments that could be made. But unfortunately, sometimes I don't think the booking is where it needs to be consistently throughout the year for everybody. So that puts us in a situation, the way I look at it, where everybody's kind of pretty close together. So I mean, it's a fine pick for number one. I can't argue with it. It's just not mine.
Kimmy's
to be
taking her
fair.
jacket off. She's getting serious. Hold on.
Oh, no, because here's my thing, right? If it wasn't for Athena, what would Kiera Hogan be doing? She had that amazing, like, Chicago street fight with her. Then the whole thing with Mercedes, that's why Mercedes and Diamante are together. And you could make the argument that Athena is the reason why Tony Khan decided to take women's wrestling seriously again. I'm
Has he
heartbroken.
though? Has he though?
I mean, we had 8 women in a match tomorrow. That's pretty good for him.
We'll
He's
see how much
he's
We,
time that
starting
match
to.
gets.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that someone's coming out at the end, whether it be my other very good friend, Dr. Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, Mercedes.
So let me ask you. So let me ask you a question, right? So you're
Yes.
talking about this 8 women's tag team match, and it's kind of in a Brody Lee memorial type match. That's what they're kind of pushing these 8-man tag matches as part of. Is it more important for you to have 8 women in one match, or if they would have had 3 matches with 6 women?
Oh, obviously 3 matches, but it's baby steps to get there. We had 3 matches on World's End. I was very proud of him for that. That was a very big deal. I think this is a big year. I mean, we talked about Deanna Purrazzo. Sign the dotted line. She's the one who I really think is going to dethrone Toni Storm.
See, I put out there on X, formerly Twitter. I can't believe I actually said X. Uh, that I thought, all the hoopla was Mercedes was going to sign with AEW, that Deanna would assign, he would move Deanna to Ring of Honor, and that she would have been the one to have beat Athena. That's where I thought they were going to go with that, and obviously they're not going to go with that now. So interesting.
And down the line, because Deanna is a former Ring of Honor Women's Champion, she technically didn't get her rematch from Mercedes when she lost it. I think it was like 2 years ago. So she's technically owed a Ring of Honor Women's Championship rematch. Maybe that'll be the match of Revolution. Tony Khan decides to put all the other Ring of Honor titles on a AEW pay-per-view. Let's put the women's title on it.
I like it. All right. So, Tom, you're number one.
So my number one is, I guarantee is going to be controversial. But for me, as we all know, I'm a person that likes to feel when I'm watching wrestling. I like to have a good time. I like to be entertained. And the female of the year for me is the one that always keeps me entertained and is the glue that keeps everything together and keeps whoever they have with the titles, she helps keep the titles on them. And it's Bailey. I look at Bailey and I just I giggle. I mean, she's just so good at what she does. I think she's elevated everyone in her group, and I just I know it's coming. In my opinion, I think it's coming to an end. I think there's going to be a turn, and I think Bailey's got a big face run coming up. But just for me, she's a pro's pro, and I'm entertained every time she is out there. And for me, that means more than winning a championship. It means more than having, the best matches and multiple matches. If I'm entertained, I think that that's the most important thing. And when I'm looking at how close I feel like everyone was, that's what pushed her to the top of my list, is just the fact that I enjoy what she's doing when she's on my screen more than anybody else.
So Tom did the old PWI 500. There was a year, I think it was maybe 1999's PWI 500. Could be wrong on that. They were having such a hard time figuring out who was number one. They just said, who's the best actual technical wrestler in the world? And that's who we're going to give it to. And they gave it to Dean Malenko. Because they could not break a tie. So they're just like, so Tom's going with the value. I'm going to be honest, Bailey's not my top, would not be in my top 15. Uh, but I think next year she probably will have a good shot of making my top 10 or even higher, because of what you're talking about. I think that face turn is coming. I think fans do like Bailey. They want to like her. Uh, but don't be shocked about a double swerve, too, where it could be Bailey still sticking heel. They've done that before as well, where they've done. You're thinking that Bailey's going to turn face, and instead she's the one that's running the show, and they beat up Io and take her out. There's always that. I didn't make mine. She is very entertaining. Um, Kimmy.
So Bailey's actually my Royal Rumble winner. I think that's where we're gonna get the eventual turn. So then you could have the big Bailey versus Io Sky match. She finally gets her moment. I think that is where we're going. So I think that's a fair assessment. I think Bailey, she's someone that's so underrated. And when you look at all the four horsewomen, she is the most underrated one every single time because everyone always focuses on Mercedes and everyone always focuses on Becky and Charlotte, but no one cares about Bailey. And it sucks because at the end of the day, she's one of the better ones out of the four. That's a controversial take too. But Bailey is a fair pick. I like that. I understand it. And by the way, I have heat with Dean Malenko, so that's a sensitive subject.
Talk off air. And before you mentioned the Royal Rumble, we will also have a Royal Rumble prediction show. Ella J will be joining us for that right before the Royal Rumble, so that'll be a lot of fun as well. And my number one, like I said earlier, I really thought it should have been Rhea Ripley. All the signs were there, and she couldn't hold on to the spot for me. But the person who did, I can't believe I got as my number one, but they swallowed their pride this year. and that's Becky Lynch. To go down to NXT, and whether she wanted to or not, right? That's a prideful thing to do. To be on top of the world basically for many years now in her craft and being highly regarded as one of the best women's wrestlers in the world, to go down and help elevate people like Lyra Valkyrie and like Tiffany Stratton, and also not afraid to do jobs to people like Nia Jax, even though that's considered this year. She's had a really good year from starting off tag team champions with Lita, to going through all of those, winning the NXT championship. I really thought her match quality was that of the best women's match quality in WWE this year. The only match to me that topped her and Tiffany was the Rhea and Charlotte match at Mania. But Becky Lynch for me is my number one. And for someone who wasn't even in my top five last year, really good rebound year for her for me.
I think we're starting to slowly see the end of Becky Lynch's career. I know her and Seth's contract expires in around June or July at some point in the summer, but I think, the reason why she wanted to go back down to NXT is because she wants to really do everything, and that was the one thing she never did was hold that NXT Women's Championship. She was the only one of the four horsewomen that never got to hold it. So I do think that sadly we're seeing the end of the era of the man. Very depressing and very upsetting. But that's also a fair pick. I wouldn't have thought that way, but that's a fair pick too.
That's why we do these shows, because it's always different. And if you had our 1 through 10s, I guarantee if we went 1 through 20, it would have been even crazier, crazier. Um, one person for me that was almost on my list was Julia Hart. I thought she had a fantastic year. She did only wrestle 20 matches in 2023. And so there's a lot of those type of women out there, and hopefully this year able to wrestle more matches. They're able to put more time in, and not only just wrestle the matches, meaningful matches. But it was a great year for women's wrestling overall. A lot of big stars rising up in all the promotions. Some end of an era. And do you think some of the rumors that are going around right now that maybe Camille's coming to NXT? Maybe Julia's coming to NXT. Maybe Mercedes is going over to AEW to join Deonna Purrazzo. I mean, it's some really good matchups if they take advantage of it out there.
This is going to be a good year. I mean, if we're sitting here like in 2025, I'm going to bet you like our entire top five is going to look completely different.
Guarantee it.
The only there's two people on my list I think could possibly be, depending on what they do with Stratton. And what they do with Billy. I mean, both of those two could probably still be on mine. And if actually they let Rhea wrestle some, who knows?
How many matches did you say that Julia had this year?
Julia? I didn't say Julia's.
Julia Hart.
Oh, 20.
22. Oh,
22 matches.
22 matches. Wow, that's 11 more than Roman, but somehow he still made your list.
Okay, Kimmy's here. Okay, Kimmy is here.
Oh no, I am
so here. So on our men's list.
I just thought it was odd that you mentioned that was why she wasn't on the list. She only had 22 matches, but okay, go ahead.
Half of those matches weren't meaningful matches.
And they weren't
all
good.
Roman's matches are meaningful.
So if half of hers wasn't meaningful, that means she had just as many meaningful matches as Roman. But okay, go ahead. Keep going.
There's different levels of meaning.
Did someone have Roman Reigns their number one?
No, I had Roman at number 4.
How? Man barely showed up.
Okay, so here was my argument. And actually we put a poll up on, and the majority was with me.
No, they weren't. You don't know how to read a poll. You don't know how to read a poll. There were 3 options that said Roman shouldn't have been in the top 5, and one option that he was in the top 5. And it was 33% that wanted him in the top 5, which means 67%, 77, whatever. My math's not right now. But way more people wanted him out of the top 5 than in the top 5. But he doesn't know how to read a poll.
I don't know what we
I didn't
saw
even
more
know.
of this year. Roman Reigns returning graphics or CM Punk returning graphics. I mean, let's be real.
So, but here was my reasoning, Kimmy, was because even though he was not around, he was the main focal point of the biggest storyline in the WWE. Whether it was Jay, Jimmy, Solo, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, it all still Cody Rhodes. It still all revolved around Roman. And in the big matches, all those matches delivered this past year. Whether you like the result or not of Cody winning or not, his matches delivered. And it was the anytime Roman was on the TV, it was the most entertaining part of SmackDown or WWE programming for me. It just really was. I get what everyone's saying. He didn't wrestle. He's hardly never there. Da, 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 da. But the storylines, whether he was on the show or not, still revolved around Roman and the bloodline. Whether it be Jay and Jimmy trying to impress him, Sammy trying to impress him. So he got my number 4. And it's not like I gave him number 1. He was number 3 in the PWI,
Yeah, and I
right?
disagreed with that too.
Right. So where would you have had him though?
I probably wouldn't have even had him in my top five, to be honest.
No, not okay, not in your top 5, but where would you have had him? Like 1 through 20?
Probably in my top 10.
Okay. See?
All his matches, like storyline wise, sure, delivered. Actual wrestling wise, no. They're so slow. Like I get
Well,
bored.
I mean, he was
Plus, you know
wrestling.
what's going to happen.
He was
That's a
wrestling Logan
fact.
Paul and L.A. Knight. I mean, let's get real here. So
Notice who he didn't wrestle this year. Seth Rollins, the only person to have defeated him. My number
Seth,
one.
Seth didn't make my top 10.
He's the only WWE superstar to wrestle on every single pay-per-view.
I don't think he didn't make your top 10 either, did he? Huh?
No,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
didn't.
I wish I was on the men's one. We would have went to war. Who was your number one
Next
then?
year. Okay. Next year, you get the men's. You'll be on our men's.
Awesome. Someone's got to clip this.
Gunther,
I'll remind you.
Gunther was my number 1.
Gunther.
Gunther was my number 1.
Why?
Cody was my number 1.
Cody was his number.
Cody. Oh my God.
Ah,
Man's lost. He didn't even finish the story. I was there. Can we talk about this? So I was at SoFi Stadium when this happened, right? And I've been to hundreds of wrestling shows in my life. I have never heard an arena be quiet ever. That night, there was like a hush across SoFi Stadium. I was like, what is happening here? So, no.
so real quick,
His, yes.
before we let you go, so how do you think the whole Rock, Roman, Cody thing is going to play out for WrestleMania?
I think that The Rock is going to wrestle Roman Reigns at Elimination Chamber because I think they do need to sell out that 60,000 to 70,000 stadium, and that is a way to do it. If you don't have Roman on that card, I don't think that you're going to sell it out, and that is something that they desperately want to do because if you notice, WWE, half of their pay-per-views for 2024 are not in America. They're in different countries. So I think that is how we play out The Rock. And then Roman's obviously going to beat him and then Cody, they're gonna have a men's elimination chamber, and it's gonna be the number one contendership, and that Cody's gonna win that. And then Punk's gonna win the men's Royal Rumble to wrestle Rollins.
I like your thinking. My main thing is I just can't see them putting The Rock in Australia at that time of night. I mean, because it's going to be like 4 in the morning, right? For some of us here. I like it. I like it a lot. It's just hard.
Because then if you have The Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania, what is Cody doing? I do not like the idea of a triple threat. I think that is
Cody's
stupid.
wrestling. Okay, so here's what I think. I think Roman's going to retain at the Royal Rumble. Okay, that's why they made it a 4-way. Okay, I think Roman's going to wrestle Orton at the Elimination Chamber. I think The Rock may cost Roman at the Elimination Chamber, and Cody's going to wrestle Orton for the title at Mania.
I feel like the problem is like you already built that story with Roman that I feel like it has to end like that. It has to end with him beating Roman.
Is that the story, or is it he just got to win the belt?
I mean, he's
See,
gonna win
because
the belt, but I feel like
I
we're
think he
already
just
so
has to
far
win the belt.
in.
I think he just has to win the belt because I don't know. I just look at it as we know he can beat Roman, just like everybody else can beat Roman if nobody else is there to help him win. So that's the story that they're telling. They're telling the story that Roman can't win a match unless he's got his family with him. It's the family that's strong. It's not Roman. So for me, it doesn't have to be him beating Roman because we already know he can beat him.
what about? Here's the other thing. What if Roman wrestles both nights at WrestleMania?
And you screw Punk out of his main event match at WrestleMania?
It doesn't have to because Rock wrestled Hogan, and it was not the main event, right?
I
So
will
night one,
wait. I was like 3 years old.
okay. So Jericho went on last against Triple H.
Okay.
Rock and Hogan was third from the bottom, right? So night one, head of the table match. Whoever wins that wrestles Cody on night two.
I don't think Roman's gonna want to wrestle both nights. Man doesn't even want to show up to work when he has to.
After he loses the title to Cody at Mania, he's going to be gone until SummerSlam anyway.
Maybe. I don't know. I think WWE very much booked themselves into a corner. I think with The Rock it's so difficult because you had the strike that went on. So obviously everyone was like, "Oh my God, the strike's going on. We're gonna get The Rock." Then they resolved the strike. Now his whatever's going on with his football league that low key tanked, but low key didn't because they combined with the USFL. So I don't know. Like, is he filming anything? Does anyone know this? Or are we all just assuming that he's not?
Who knows? And The Rock may be like, I'm not going to wrestle Roman until SummerSlam, and we all think it's WrestleMania.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's gonna suck.
I mean, there's a lot of scenarios. Originally though, I was kind of like you. I think Cody needed to beat Roman to finish the story. I really do. But now they've had so much fall into their lap. They didn't expect Punk at last year's Mania. They did not expect CM Punk, and they probably thought The Rock was out of the question finally. And now here it is, and things fall in your lap sometimes. And let's be honest, if The Rock versus Roman falls into your lap, at some point you've got to do it. You've got to
Oh,
do
I
it.
agree. It's just a matter of how they figure it out. I trust Triple H, hopefully.
They've got some work to do to get there.
Legacy storyline with Randy and Cody. It's there. So we'll see. All right. Well, Kimmy, thank you so much for joining us. Greatly
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Go ahead and plug your social media.
Thank you guys for having me. I very much enjoy every time we get to do this. So you can follow me on Twitter at Kimmy_Sokol, Sokol. I fight with Nyla Rose on there very often. If you've noticed the past like 3 weeks, her and I have a feud going on. So you can follow me over there. You could also follow me on Instagram at Kimmy.Sokol because I guess I forgot that, under didn't exist, so I had to change it up a little bit. You could see my Ring of Honor reviews every Thursday after Ring of Honor's over on PW Insider. I also write for the Pop Break. I just write basically everything and anything. My Hard to Kill predictions will be up probably Friday night or Saturday morning because TNA is back, guys. Very excited about that. I also, on the Kimmy Talks Wrestling YouTube channel, I review Ring of Honor. That's up Fridays at 10 a.m. And that is about it. Or you could see me on the convention scene, just hanging with the biggest AEW stars there is.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, always a pleasure to have you on. And like her tagline says, she does everything in wrestling but wrestle. As of now, you
Oh
never know.
no. So
You,
So I'll tell a very quick story. So at the indie show I worked this past weekend, I was interviewing Darius Carter, and I had to hold the ropes for him, and I was way too short to do that. So I was so struggling, and Darius didn't even care. So don't think the wrestling thing's gonna work out, but we always say never say never. So guess we'll see.
Never say never. All right. For myself and Tom, make sure y'all doing what y'all need to do. Stay safe, stay healthy. Go out, enjoy all the great wrestling. We got some great lineups. We still got our tag team show coming up. We're going to break down the top 5 tag teams of 2023. And we'll also review the Iron Claw on that episode as well. We also made mention that we are going to do our Royal Rumble prediction show coming up right before the Royal Rumble. Miss Ella J will join us for that as well. Cannot wait for that. It's been a long time since Ella's been on our show, and it's going to be great to have her on here as well. For myself, Tom, and Kimmy, everyone, enjoy your week. We'll see y'all next time.